The mission is simple: to help high achievers naturally eliminate emotional and physical obstacles so they can optimize their life for higher achievement. Welcome. You have just entered the Genesis Zone. Good day and welcome to the Genesis Zone show. This is Dr. Brian Brown. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule on this beautiful Thursday to join us. Do you have trouble sleeping? Do you have anxiety? Could either of these two things, sleep or anxiety issues, be causing you to develop depression later on down the road? Well, it sounds like a moody brain issue to me, and whether these can lead to depression or not is the question we're going to be answering today. If you want to avoid the pit of depression later on in the future, anywhere in your future, stay tuned. In today's episode, we'll be teasing through the details, and I'll share with you a recent study that literally just came out this morning, and a case study of mine that's going to help you avoid these issues. Now, let's talk about anxiety first, because as you'll see in a moment, anxiety was one of the hallmark things that the researchers were looking at. Anxiety, as it is pretty self-explanatory. You know, if you're one of these people that tends to worry a lot, you tend to feel nervous or jittery, you tend to have a lot of muscle tension or those types of things. Just think WAT, worry, anxiety, and tension. If you have a lot of those things in your life, then chances are you're dealing with some anxiety issues. Now, there are many forms of anxiety. Obsessive compulsive disorder is a form of anxiety, and that's where you obsess about things to the point that you compulsively do something to relieve that stress, that anxiety related to the obsession. Think of obsessions as thoughts, compulsions as the action around that thought. And then there's panic disorder. Panic disorder gets a lot of attention because there are a lot of people, unfortunately, that struggle with panic issues. Now, panic issues occur when you feel like you're literally losing control. Your heart's racing, you're short of breath. Maybe you develop tunnel vision. Maybe you break out in a sweat. Maybe your palms get really, really, really sweaty. Maybe you feel like you're going to pass out. Those things are panicky type issues. Now, a typical panic attack, panic disorders shouldn't last more than 5 minutes. If they're lasting longer than 5 minutes, there's probably something else going on there, more physiologic than anything. But a panic attack is not pleasant at all. It's very miserable, actually. So this kind of gives you a broad overview of some more common anxiety type issues. The last, probably most common anxiety issue is social anxiety, where people have a hard time being in public, being in crowds, being in front of a room of people. That's more on the social anxiety scale, is more of a performance anxiety type issue, is a very, very common anxiety. And we'll see these anxieties start in childhood quite frequently. When you're taking a history with a client, with a patient, you'll find that their anxiety issues started well before any other issues ever cropped up. And sometimes they start in elementary school or middle school and then progress and get kind of gradually worse over time. Sometimes people will grow out of it, no doubt, but sometimes many times it'll get gradually worse over time. And then there's depression. Depression, again, is pretty self-explanatory. Depression is a person that is chronically feeling sad all the time. They've lost interest for the things that they normally would like to do. There are some people that are chronically depressed, very dysphoric all the time. There are some people that we work with that never really remember a time where they weren't depressed. Now, in today's talk, or in today's episode, I'm not really talking about that particular person. I'm talking about the person that develops depression later on down the road, later in life. Not necessarily they have depression early in life and they episodically carry it throughout their adult years. And some of them can start again in their childhood or teenage years and then carry it into adulthood. Not necessarily talking about this long-term depression. I'm talking about more of a depression that develops later on down the road, which is more common actually. Now, my experience with both depression and anxiety is this: it's the whole controversial question of the chicken or egg debate. Okay. Which comes first? Does depression comes first and anxiety comes later, or anxiety come first and depression comes later? Well, there's still a lot of debate around that, and nobody seems to agree on either of these. Here's what we do agree on professionally in the psychiatric community. We know that people that struggle with depression and have had no prior history of anxiety have about a 2 to 3 times increased risk for developing anxiety at some point in their life. Okay. However, on the flip side of that, if we have a person that hasn't really had a a diagnosable depression episode, but they struggle with anxiety, almost 75 to 80% of the time, they will have depressive symptoms. Now, listen to the language here. The depressive symptoms is different than a depressive disorder. Okay. So 75 to 80% of the time, an anxious person, a person struggling with any form of anxiety will develop depressive symptoms. I mean, imagine living with anxiety all the time. It just wears you down, and it makes you feel kind of hopeless and helpless. All right. So but in this particular case, with the study that I'm about to tell you about that was just released this morning in the Journal of Anxiety Disorders, they specifically looked at people who had known anxiety issues, an anxiety diagnosis. And they did a measurement at the beginning of the study assessing their anxiety, their depression, and their sleep. And then 9 years later, they did the same assessment, measuring anxiety, depression, and sleep. And then 9 years after that, so this is a total of 18 years from the beginning, they measured again anxiety, depression, and sleep. Here's what they found. And there were over 3,200, almost 3,300 people in this study. And the researchers found something pretty amazing that we've not seen before as a phenomenon in psychiatry. And I'm going to tell you why it's important here in just a second. The phenomenon that they noticed is that those that didn't have anxiety, they may or may not develop depression over the long haul if they didn't have sleep issues. Those who didn't have anxiety, who did have sleep issues at the 9-year mark, and they were self-reporting that, yes, my sleep is worse than it was 9 years ago, and it was just that simple, then those people were more likely to become depressed. However, when you had a person that had anxiety at the very beginning, and then they reported that they were having sleep issues that were worse than 9 years before, at the middle mark, at the 9-year mark measurement, those people were significantly more likely to develop depression later on down the road. So in answer to today's questions, can anxiety and sleep issues lead to depression later on down the road? Absolutely, they can. Okay. Now, they had no speculation as to why that was happening. That'll be for later studies. But knowing what I know in genetics and epigenetics and understanding the human body at a very cellular level, I understand that when we don't sleep, when we don't get that deep restorative sleep, our inflammation markers don't come down, our cortisol markers don't come down, our adrenaline markers don't come down, and we tend to be more exposed to those things, more on alert. Our body is on high alert at all times, and that presents a problem. So we need that deep restorative sleep to actually help the brain calm down. If the brain doesn't calm down, we don't produce a chemical in the front part of the brain that's kind of our natural Xanax. It's called GABA. It stands for GABA aminobutyric acid, but GABA is very calming, like a Xanax or a clonazepam or an Ativan. It's just your body's natural anti-anxiety medication. But if we don't get that deep restorative sleep, we don't produce that GABA in our brain. So therefore, anxiety continues to go up, 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 up. And we know that people that struggle with anxiety are more prone to depression. But The flip side of that is if we're not getting sleep, we're more inflamed. And we know that people that are more inflamed are more prone to depression, because depression is an inflammatory disorder. We've known that for years now. And there's currently a lot of research being done in that area. In fact, there was a really simple study done about, I lose track of time, it's about 18 years ago. And this study actually looked at the use of NSAIDs, which is a over-the-counter anti-inflammatory pain medication, analgesic. And they looked at NSAID use in people with major depressive disorder, and they found that NSAID use actually had some clinical effect in reducing depressive symptoms over time. Now, do you want to take NSAIDs all the time? No, they're not necessarily, depending on which NSAID you're taking, they're not necessarily good for your liver or your stomach or your kidneys. You got to be really careful there. But do they have some clinical effect? Decreasing inflammation helped improve mood? Absolutely. And so we have to look at this holistically and look at the whole person. It's not just anxiety that we're treating. It's not just depression that we're treating. It's not just sleep issues that we're treating. We have to look at all of these and their interconnectedness and their relationship. When we have a person that struggles with moody brain, are they having pain syndromes? Are they having autoimmune or immune issues? If that's the case, then we need to address that whole person. And it becomes a very complex. It's not complicated, it's just complex. And we need to start looking at this from a complex clinical point of view. And in my personal opinion, the best way to start that work is to start with genetics first and work our way up. But anyway, let me talk to you about a client that I had. This particular client came to me and was having some issues with stress management, anxiety. It had been lifelong. It had dated back to their teenage years. Had gotten worse in their adult years and gotten even worse when they entered the workforce and got married and had kids. And this particular person came to me and said, if you can help me with this stress, this anxiety, I would just be your best friend. So being the holistic practitioner I am, and I just asking questions left and right to try to get a whole picture. And then we ordered genetics, and I got the genetics back. And on the initial evaluation, just asking questions, it was determined that maybe there was a little bit of sleep issues going on. This person wasn't quite sure. They didn't really think they had a lot of sleep issues. But I have a biometric measuring device that I use to help monitor sleep. So we use that device with this person, and come to find out they were sleeping horribly. All right. So when we got the genetics results back, I included within my plan, my treatment plan, is epigenetically looking at those genes that affect sleep. Most of those were neurotransmitters. Some of them were inflammation and detoxification. Some of them were methylation. Okay, so we looked at all of those genes related to this sleep issue. And guess what? When we addressed the sleep issue with this client, the anxiety issues went away. Because there's so much overlap when we're looking at sleep and we're looking at anxiety. There's a ton of overlap at the root level, at the genetic level. So if you treat one, you're probably going to treat the other. Now, this particular person did not have any type of depressive issues. All right, you need to know that. But this person is also in their mid 30s, relatively young, and hasn't really lived long enough with an anxiety and a sleep disorder or sleep issues to actually develop the depression, if you look at the study that I just mentioned. But once we got a plan in place to address the sleep and subsequently the anxiety, just from and there were no prescriptions written, there were no pharmaceutical medications used. In fact, if you really want to know the God's honest truth, this particular person was on a pharmaceutical medication, and we were able to come off of that medication within 12 weeks. And this person had been on this medication for about 7 years. So that is the level of effect that you can that you can implement, that you can bring about in someone if you address everything simultaneously, and address the whole person at the genetic level. So what can you do to improve sleep? Well, yeah, if we're going to address genetics, then we need to look at the outside environmental factors that can also affect those genetics. Now, these are common sense things, and you're going to think, oh, Brian, well, I already knew all that. But bear with me really quickly. Um, I, if you're having trouble sleeping, and you struggle with anxiety, or you don't struggle with anxiety, it really doesn't matter. You deserve to get in the bed at the same time every night. And you may be thinking, oh, that's impossible with my schedule. I've got this, and this. Nope. It just becomes a habit. You need you need to prioritize getting in the bed at the same time every night, and you need to prioritize waking up at the same time every morning. When your body and your brain get into this pattern of going to bed at the same time every night and waking up at the same time every morning, it becomes more healthy for your circadian rhythm, and your circadian rhythm starts to adjust. And it says, oh, yeah, I can follow this pattern. Now, how many hours of sleep? I get this question all the time. How many hours of sleep do I need, Dr. Brian? And it's different for everybody. Okay. I tell people, at minimum, and this is on the worst end, and to me, it's in the red zone, at minimum 6 hours. But I would prefer that you get a minimum of 7 hours. All right. That is the beginning of the green zone for me. And don't go over 9 hours of sleep. Now, there's some people that you're going to find that they just have to have 10 hours sleep, or 10 and a half, or 11. I'm not one of those people. My eyes pop open at the same time, usually before my alarm goes off every single morning. It's because I am in a habit of going to bed at the same time and getting up at the same time. And it's just something that's developed over time. However, you just focus on getting the beginning and ending time of your sleep pattern set. And I say plus or minus 20 minutes. Okay. So if you get in the bed a little 20 minutes later, push the morning time, the wake up time 20 minutes later. If you get in bed 20 minutes earlier, push your wake up time 20 minutes earlier. So plus or minus, give or take 20 minutes on either end. Very important. Stay hydrated throughout the day. If you're dehydrated going into your sleep, you're going to have a very fitful, restless sleep. Trust me on that. So stay hydrated. If you have any nasal or sinus obstruction issues, you deserve to get that checked out. See an ear, nose, and throat doctor. See your family practitioner, your GP. Do whatever you have to do. If you can close one side of your nose and you can't breathe well through the other side, and then vice versa, you've got some obstruction issues. And it could be a polyp, it could be a deviated septum, which is the middle part of your nose that divides the two sides of your nose. It could be a deviated septum, it could be a polyp, it could be something else going on, a chronic sinus infection. Whatever the case may be, the obstructed nasal and sinus breathing that occurs at night can keep you awake and can make you guppy breathe throughout the night. You become a mouth breather. Your mouth becomes exceptionally dry. You're seeing a new phenomenon right now where people will tape their mouth shut to force themselves to breathe through their nose. I like that concept, but I do believe you deserve to get this checked out before you tape your mouth. Otherwise, you're not going to be breathing well, and you're going to feel like you're oxygen starved throughout the night. And that's not a good place to be too. And then I want you to address hormone issues. If you're having hormone decline, meaning you're over age 35 or 40, then you're definitely having hormone decline, and you need to have those issues addressed so that you can sleep better. And then you need to address neurotransmitter issues. And I'm not talking about with prescription medications, with prescription sleep medications, or antidepressants, or anti-anxiety medications. That's not what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about addressing neurotransmitter issues, I'm talking about from a root cause level, from a genetic level. Get your genetics checked. Understand where you are with methylation, with neurotransmitters, detoxification, inflammation, and know what needs to be worked on, and then naturally put those supplements, those lifestyle changes in place that can help that. And then next up is address body pain or body discomfort issues. Now, what do I mean by that? When you ask the average person that is having difficulty sleeping whether or not they feel comfortable in their body when they wake up in the morning, or if they wake up in the middle of the night, do you feel comfortable? Or the opposite of that, do you feel discomfort? And they may have discomfort in their neck, they may have discomfort in their back, their shoulders, their hips. All of those areas can be uncomfortable when you're sleeping. And if you already have issues in these areas, they generally speaking become more magnified when you're in bed. Okay. So, a person that is a chronic pain person and they're staying in bed all the time, that's the worst thing they can do for their chronic pain. That's a little sidebar, but hopefully you get the idea. If you're having discomfort issues in your body, neck, back, shoulders, hip, whatever the case may be, then it's definitely interfering with your sleep. Now, I will tell you this. If your mattress is 10 years old or older, it's time to change your mattress. Nobody likes to hear that. But let's say you spend, $2, $3, $4,000 or more on a mattress and you replace it every 10 years. If you divide that out per night that you've spent on sleep, and then it's a very low investment. Okay. And it is an investment, and you need to look at it that way. Your mattress is one of the most important things you can do for your sleep. And I talk to people all the time and they say, oh, my sleep is horrible. I toss and turn all night. And tossing and turning, by the way, is a telltale sign that you're not comfortable. You're having a lot of discomfort. You're having some pain somewhere, or you're having breathing issues. You've tossed, and if you're in that toss and turn mode, but 9 times out of 10, I will ask them, how old is your mattress? How long have you had your mattress? And they will say, oh, it's 15, 16, 17 years old. I was like, oh man, it's time to get rid of that mattress. You've got to get rid of the mattress, because if you don't, then you're doing your neck, your back, your shoulders, your hips no justice, and you're not going to sleep well at all until you get that mattress changed. So mattresses that are 10 years of age or older need to be replaced. And then pay special attention to your pillow and your neck positioning. This is critical. If your pillow is not right for your neck, if it's too fluffy, if it's too high, it's going to have your neck bent forward in your sleep. Whether you're on your side or on your back, it's going to have your neck bent forward. That is not a good position to be. It's not good for airflow. It's not good for vascular flow for your blood vessels in your neck. It's not good for anything. So you end up being oxygen starved in your brain, and you end up disrupting your sleep simply by having the wrong pillow. Make sure that your pillow, I prefer one that's more flat and more contoured to the shape of your neck and your shoulders. I use one that you can pick up on Amazon. It's called a butterfly pillow. And it's made out of memory foam. It's an absolutely amazing pillow. And I use that every single night. I travel with it. If I go somewhere and have to spend the night in a hotel, I'm taking my pillow with me. It's just part of what I pack in my suitcase. And then this is another critical issue. When you're having trouble sleeping, I want you to keep the room colder than the rest of your house. And so the question becomes, how cold should I keep my room when I'm sleeping? Well, there are companies that are popping up, and I'll answer that in a second, but there are companies that are popping up that have either cooling blankets or cooling mattress pads that you put on your bed at night to actually cool your temperature down. Because what experts have found, sleep experts have found, is that when your core body temperature drops, guess what happens? Your deep sleep goes up. So the cooler we are, the deeper we sleep. And if you remember from the beginning of this conversation, the deeper our sleep, the more healing occurs, the more restored we feel the next morning. So if you don't have the resources to spend on a cooling blanket or cooling mattress pad, I would rather you spend that on a brand new mattress and just turn the temperature down in your room. So how cool should you keep your room? I personally believe that it should be around 65, 67 degrees. Now, those of you who are listening that say, oh, there's no way I can do that, I'm cold all the time. Well, then you need to have your thyroid checked. Okay. Could be another reason you're not sleeping well is because you're cold all the time and your metabolism is shutting down. I will tell you personally that I track my sleep. My sleep tracker actually measures body temperature, and my body temperature is always about 5/10 of a degree to a degree lower than the average bear. And it's because I keep my room cool. I sleep with very minimal clothes. I sleep with just sleep shorts on, and I sleep with just the sheet on top of me. I don't sleep with a blanket. It's very rare. Sometimes around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I'll pull a blanket up on me, but that is very rare. And that's okay to do that because you should want to warm up just a little bit before you start waking up. In fact, it's physiologically normal as your body's preparing to wake up. It's releasing cortisol. Elevates blood pressure and it elevates blood sugar, which actually warms your body up metabolically. So you actually are feeling the need to be warmer. And it's okay to pull a blanket up at that time. If you use one of these electronic cooling pads or cooling blankets, they will automatically do that for you. So it'll go through a cycle. You set your bedtime, and again, you're getting in bed at the same time every night. So you'll set the unit for like 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. and be in the bed at that time, and it'll start going through a cycle, and it'll start off at room temperature, and then it'll gradually get cooler, 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 cooler until it's got you down to whatever temperature you set. Some of them will go as low as 58 degrees, and it'll take your temperature down. And then throughout the early morning hours, it'll bring your temperature back up. And that's totally fine to do that. But I very rarely ever use anything other than a sheet. And I keep my room around 65, 67 degrees. The other thing is as I mentioned, sleep with unrestricted clothes. If you're binding around your arms and shoulders and your hips and legs, your knees, the bends of your legs, it's just going to interfere with your sleep. You're going to be fighting with your clothes all night. So don't do that to yourself. And the last thing I will tell you is block junk light. What is junk light? Junk light are the lights on your electronic devices, the lights on your computer, the light on your TV, the light on your DVD, or the light on your cable box, or the light on your smoke detector. Or in our bathroom, we have little bitty green LED lights on our GFR switches in the bathroom that light up the whole bathroom. So get rid of junk light. If you can't necessarily get rid of junk light, then you can order off of Amazon these little bitty circle dots that are black, and you can cover up all of those extraneous lights in your room. Another way to do it is a sleep mask that I highly recommend because it's adjustable to no matter what your face size is. And that's called the Manta, M-A-N-T-A, Manta face mask. It works like a charm. I never travel without it because I can sleep in a snowstorm, in a tornado, in a hurricane, as long as I have that mask on. If I block light, I'm out within 10 seconds. In fact, my sleep tracking tends to get on to me for going to sleep too quickly, but it's not an issue. That sleep app doesn't know that my room is 65 degrees. That sleep app doesn't know that I've done everything I can to prepare myself for sleep, and therefore I go to sleep very, very quickly. So I hope this helps you understand. I focused a lot here at the end on sleep, and the reason I did is because in this study that we looked at today that just came out this morning, it hinged on sleep. Sleep was the hinging factor for developing depression later on down the road, whether you had anxiety or didn't have anxiety. But as we discussed, those who had anxiety were more likely to develop depression. But even if you didn't have anxiety, if you had sleep issues, you still were more likely to develop depression. So get your sleep. Do yourself a favor. Get your sleep on point. And go through these things that I just mentioned. There's a lot of things. And typically I don't put a list of things like that in here, but I believe that sleep is so critically important that you deserve to get these things in order. Work on them one at a time, over time, get them just right. Sleep is something that I'm always, always, always biohacking to make just a little bit better, just a little bit better, just a little bit better. So that's all I've got for today. We are doing a boot camp promotion right now. You can see the URL on the screen. I'll pop it up here for you. Let's see. Yeah, there's the URL right there. drbriangBrown.com/gene hack/boot camp. Now this boot camp is free right now. And what this boot camp will do for you is it will help you understand the exact starting point. So for example, if you think you have sleep issues, my questionnaire, this boot camp will walk you through my questionnaire, and it will help you understand whether or not you truly have sleep issues or whether your sleep issues are related to something else. Okay. If you have anxiety, it's going to help you tease through whether or not you truly have a primary anxiety issue or there's something else behind the scenes working that you didn't even know was working. That's what this boot camp does. It's totally free. For in the past, I've literally charged $1,500 to do this boot camp one-on-one with somebody over the course of a few hours. Okay. On a call. So you're getting it for free. Take advantage of it, because I don't know how long the boot camp is going to be free. Now, I know the word boot camp sounds like a lot of work. It's not. Okay. Looking back, and we're looking at changing that, probably going to rename it, because boot camp does connotate a lot of work. There's not a lot of work here. There's a little bit of homework. You need to fill out the questionnaire. But other than that, it's just at your own pace, working through the videos and learning and understanding what's going on inside your body, so that you know exactly what direction you need to take, which genetics you need to have checked. And then I'd throw in there some like most common supplements that I see being used all the time that modify genetics. And these are the supplements that I've found over the years with clients that I've worked with that I pretty much use with most every single client. So I give you that list of supplements so that if you decide, hey, doing genetic testing right now is not for me, you can go ahead and get started and actually do start some of these supplements that genetically modify your genes. So that's all I've got for today. Until next time, stay in the zone. Thank you. Always, I'm so grateful that you spent this time with us. I don't take that for granted. I really don't. Most grateful, most trusted, and most gracious that you spent this time. Until next time, I'm Dr. Brian signing off.